Good luck.
Thank you, you too.
What's up, everybody? It's Thursday morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're at. We usually have a pretty good worldwide group that joins us here. We are here today on the 28th of January with some newfound friends, Mustafa and Natasha from AEFIS. Welcome.
Hello.
And Stephen Hawks from the University of Minnesota. We are excited. We're going to talk about some pretty incredible stuff. Oh, and really quickly, looks like we're getting a strange echo. There we go. As we start, let's do a round of introductions, and then I'll hand it over to our main man, Jared Stein. Mustafa, tell us who you are and where you're from.
Sure. I'm the founder CEO of AEFIS. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm humbled by all the wonderful people on this call, including Jared, Natasha, Stephen Hawks, our partner from University of Minnesota. Thank you for being here, Stephen. We love you. And Mark, thank you for being awesome and staying up late, and yet looking like you just walked off a yacht doing this. So kudos.
Oh, this guy. We need to have Mustafa on here more often. We had a big web launch last night, everyone. It's been a crazy past 15 hours. Natasha, tell us what you do at AEFIS.
Sure. Well, I am new to AEFIS. I am the Director of Assessment Success, and I am located in Champaign, Illinois. So if you're wondering what's going on in the middle bit of the country, it is cold, windy, exactly what you'd expect. I'm happy to be here and be a part of the conversation today. So thanks so much.
Exactly what we expect in Illinois, everyone. Thanks, Natasha. Stephen, give us the intro. How are things out in Minnesota?
Hi, everyone. Stephen Hawks from the University of Minnesota. Usually I have a giant M in the background with a snow-covered image, but not today for this call, but just like Illinois, cold and snowy.
Cold and snowy. Well, everyone, we are excited to be with you. We've got some really cool stuff planned for you today. And my good friend, Jared Stein, our Vice President of Higher Ed Strategy, is here with us and is going to lead the conversation. As he's jumping in, make sure, as always, we want to hear who you are and where you're from. In the comments, drop us a line. Tell us what organization you're from, what it is that you do. As we're waiting here, Mustafa, give me just a little bit of background. Some people are thinking, AEFIS, what a fun word to say. What in the world does AEFIS do?
Well, you have to pull up a chair. If you have 7 hours, I'll explain. But the short version is we partner with institutions of higher ed in ensuring their success with assessment and student success, if you will. We've been very active in the comprehensive learner record area. We've been a pace setter. And we have amazing partners and mentors and friends such as Stephen on this call and Natasha, in fact, who just recently joined our team, formerly the executive director of NILOA, which is the National Institute of Learning Outcomes Assessment. So we're very proud to have incredible partnerships with higher ed that we were able to provide them with all the wonderful tools that we provide in our assessment management platform, which is AEFIS.
I love it. Well, let's just jump in. No waiting around, my friends. We want to hear all your questions as always. Welcome again, everyone, and let's start. So some housekeeping right up front. Here's Jared for us, and I'm going to have him take over on that housekeeping. We're, of course, inviting all of you, our audience, contribute any thoughts you might have, questions, add them in the chat function. And with that, let's start off, Jared, with you going into Natasha.
That's right. We're going to talk today about the CLR, the Comprehensive Learner Record. Maybe a new idea to some of you. Some of you may have heard about it and may be curious to learn more. And so we're going to start with Natasha. Can you start by giving us a little bit of a sense of how some of the challenges and opportunities in this ever-changing, semi-post-pandemic world? What are those challenges and opportunities for us as we think about learners?
So, Jared, it looks like we're having some funny, I don't know if Natasha, Stephen, Mustafa, if you're hearing that as well, but there's some funny issues with audio that we're not catching. So I'm gonna just jump in. So can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's just jump in and I'll ask some of these questions as we figure things out. So Natasha, for you, talk to me about challenges, opportunities in the new normal for learning and learning success. What does that look like?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for the question, Mark. And sorry, Jared, about the audio. But he was mentioning about the comprehensive learner record. And so one of the things that I think is really important as we think about our new normal is the places and spaces where learning is unfolding, how we think about capturing and documenting evidence of learning in those spaces, and really thinking about making that portable for our students so they can take it from all the different learning environments they find themselves in and share it with someone else as they're moving around in an incredibly high flux, lots of other opportunities happening in this space. When I also think about the new normal, it makes me think of a couple of things in the assessment realm. So my background is as an assessment professional, so I love all things learning. If anybody wants to geek out in the comments on that with me, please feel free to do so. As we think about issues of equity that have been raised, as we think about the context in which our students are now engaging in the learning process in terms of even within a family and other things that are going on in that space, how we are positioning our new normal to be one where we actually are accepting the fact that learning happens in all these places. We can capture and document that and really think about providing those opportunities for our students in different ways to showcase what they know and can do, and making that really clear, transparent, and portable for all of our learners. So that's really exciting to me. And it's also really thinking about the student-focused part of this. Our students are the ones doing the learning, and then our new normal, our structures are questionable at best in how they move and where we learn and when we learn. And so really making the focus on our students, I think, can be incredibly useful moving forward.
Mustafa, thoughts from you to follow up?
Well, it's been an interesting time for us all, right? To say the least. It has not been easy, and I think much like in around the world, not just higher ed or educators, we've been in a position of unlearning and relearning. And I believe I'm really profoundly impressed and humbled by the leadership that our academic leaders have shown at a time where, and as a LMS provider, you know these stats better than I do, in a matter of like 2 weeks, 3 weeks span, everything went from like 99% brick and mortar to 100% online, and it's been difficult, right? And I think the important thing is at a time like this, fundamentals become most important, and that's what are those fundamentals, right? So these are grand challenges. They're and some of the in the new normal, the things that used to work will not work, and we have already formidable challenges from even before COVID in some cases. So what I believe is the fundamentals of partnership, community, innovation. That's something in America we know all too well to do, right? So we got to put our innovation genes to work, and ultimately it's about lifelong learning, because if you think about it, this whole unlearning, relearning cycle that we entered through COVID, it created this almost undeniable need for our learners and earners to have a skill that is unlearning and relearning, and have a lifelong authentic learning as a skill. And I think educational technology in our industry, with and certainly as a partners, like, I hold you to a very high standard like we do. We want to make sure that our role in this whole new normal is most positively influential to our partners as they find their way. And I think our partnerships are definitely already accomplishing that. And the comprehensive learner record, which we're talking about today, is certainly a key aspect of that. I think comprehensive learner record is like visible learning in everyone's hand now. And I think there is going to be a lot of great opportunities for our higher ed partners, and eventually I think it will expand to a much wider learner continuum. It will create opportunities for both educators and other even industries, but most importantly, our learners. And I think, and their authentic lifelong learner success is the keys to the enterprise. And that's what's clear to me anyway.
Awesome. Stephen, let's move over to you. At University of Minnesota is one of our really fantastic Canvas partners and is doing work with AEFIS as well. Thanks for joining us today and for your academic leadership. We're really interested in talking to you about how do you plan to empower any kind of learners with authentic assessment by lifelong learning? Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think First of all, thank you very much for having me, Mustafa and Mark as well from the Canvas side. Coming from the University of Minnesota, yeah, we've been a Canvas partner for 4 or 5 years now, I believe. And most recently joining the partnership with AEFIS just over a year ago. One of the things that we really liked is when we talk about partnerships, actually working together and how we can bring about this big picture image for our students. You know, we realize that data is everywhere across our institution. And so what data can we pull from our learning management system, Canvas? What data can we pull from AEFIS, as well as across from many other systems across our campus, and potentially putting those all together in this comprehensive learner record for our students. That's really where we see the potential opportunities for our students, is being able to capture all these academic pieces as well as co-curricular and extracurricular activities that our students are involved with throughout their time here at the university. And I just want to share a little bit, since we're relatively new to this comprehensive learner record conversation, we really started this conversation last fall, partly because of a joint partnership when we signed on with AEFIS as our assessment management system at the university. So we started these conversations and really wanted to dive into what we think this CLR could look like for our students and at our university. And so we put together a diverse work group, which includes individuals from across our university, undergraduate level, graduate level, professional, student affairs, etc. And we really started those conversations, and we conducted a needs assessment across the university. So who else is really interested in being able to document these types of activities and experiences for our students? And I think from my perspective, I was really surprised at the number of programs, units, offices that were interested in this. They wanted to be able to document all these different types of experiences for the students. And then what we realize now is there is interest. We realize that there's data across the university. So how do we centralize all of that data and put it into one place? And what our work group is going to be doing here, hopefully relatively soon within the next couple of weeks, is putting together a draft recommendation that will then go up the hierarchy here at the university and start having those conversations more broadly with our collegiate leadership as well as university leadership, and really what we want this to look like and be able to do and really empower the students, and so they can help take control of their learning at the university.
Data for the people, right, Stephen? That's Natasha. I'm quoting from Natasha, just for the record. Love it.
Well, I'm going to jump in now. Stephen, it sounds like that is a ton of work to both plan and coordinate and to bring into action. And Mustafa, I know anytime there's a new idea or initiative that involves technology for education, we're usually figuring it out one institution at a time. But it's really helpful when we have some standards to guide us and to help this fit across institutions. So last week, I know IMS Global announced that AEFIS was the first company to become certified in CLR. So first, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second, can you tell us what that means and how IMS Global is getting involved in CLR? Is there a technology blueprint for this? What's happening in that arena?
Jared, I would be happy to. But first, I want to make a clarification. I think the recognition really belongs with the community. That is the IMS Global, which you are also an active leader in. For those who may not know, IMS Global has been around about 20 years, and it's a nonprofit consortium for basically technology interoperability. And for those who don't follow, I always say it means reducing your risk and increasing your return on investment on your technology on your campus. And I think, in fact, our partnership really became much more formidable through our work, collaborative work with Canvas and Instructure colleagues at IMS Global. Our early work was in the LTI Advantage, which was a much more modern way to really connect the technologies that existed already on campuses. So Stephen can, or academic leaders like Stephen could have much easier time connecting those dots. Whereas comprehensive learner record is, I believe, a bit of a enabling technology or a game changer, as I'd like to call it, in the way we approach education in this country. And it's not, and to me, comprehensive learner record is both a verb and a noun. A noun because it's a standard and it's just become official, and even for those who are familiar, ACRO, which is the registrar's organization, recognizes it now as a diploma alternative. So that's think of it as like a modern diploma capabilities. But the way I like to look at it as a verb is being visible learning, or learning that has a vectorial space of dimensionality to understand how the learning journey, if you will, of the learner is evolving. And through digital credentials, of course, and including badges and other things. But all the assignments, all the assessments, all the recognition of skills that our educators are doing, currently they don't go anywhere very useful for our learners or our institutions, right, for continuous improvement. So the comprehensive learner record, think of it as this magical pool of learning, recognition of skills that can be verified. So that's why I think it's a bit of an enabling technology for all. And I believe it will usher an era of what I call skills economy, where even right now we have many of our partners are going through some difficult times with enrollment and other challenges. And we are also seeing some even programs like liberal arts having great difficulty, some programs being canceled and whatnot. So I think the way CLR will provide such utility from all skills acquired, that I want to say that CLR will save philosophy majors and theater majors, right? And I think that's the beauty of it, where as we accumulate these skills and recognize them and that they can be verified, we're adding a lot of value to our learners, creating visibility in their learning journey, and as an institution, demonstrating the value that we create. And so I think this will become a very commonplace in a few years as we talk, as we're sitting at the precipice here, with a lot of excitement. And we have, but again, all of this to say, I think all the credit belongs with fearless academic leaders like Stephen and many other mentors and colleagues and friends we have throughout our partners, where they're realizing the need for cross-cutting innovations on their campus, and that we cannot do it alone, and we cannot do it in the siloed manner. We need to do it together as a community in partnerships, both within and outside the institutions. And that's our passion, I think. We want to make sure that we are helping improve authentic lifelong learning, and that's where the CLR work and all the vision comes from. So I hope that answers your question, Jared.
Yeah, and I might come back to that idea of the CLR standard, but I want to launch off of something that you mentioned, Mustafa. I mean, I love this idea that students in university, in college, even in high school, are developing a clear understanding and representation of the skills and the knowledge and the abilities they're developing. Stephen, kind of a challenging question for you, and Natasha, if you want to weigh in, that'd be great too. Are universities ready to start talking the language of skills with their students? Are there programs ready to start recognizing those skills that students are attaining?
Natasha,
do you want to go first, or would you like me to?
I'm happy to, I'll buy you some time, Stephen. So I think you raise a really great point as we think about when we see students from a higher education perspective, an assessment person. When a lot of our students leave our institutions, they talk about the courses they took, but they can't talk about the skills, knowledge, and what they've learned. And so when they get into conversations with people, or let's say future employers, and they're going to give me an instance of when you engaged in problem solving. They're like, well, I took a class on, problem identification and solving in these ways. And they can't really give those instances of examples. They can't pinpoint those pieces, the places where they actually flex that muscle and flex that muscle in different contexts and situations. So I was not only able to do it within philosophy, let's say, but I was also able to do it in my student organization that I ran. And I was also able to do it in this other space, potentially where I was working part-time while I was going to school, let's say. Having that shared issue we have as higher education of translation between what we're doing in our institutions and how our students can take and apply that elsewhere is a huge burden. So while we get a little anxious in higher ed about skills and like maybe vocationalizing education and things, that way to tell a student what you're doing is the same as all these other ways that people talk about it. It's called this over here, it's called that over here, but here are these spaces that it has value, and you can actually see that in the record and think about that evidence and look what you've done. So when you go out and you're going to be, let's say, looking for future employment, I'm not self-selecting out of a talent pool because I don't think I have the knowledge and skills. I know exactly what I can do, and I have evidence of it. And I know how to back that up, and I know how to think about it. So I think while higher education, there are some segments within that are uncomfortable with the skills conversation, our students are ready, and they're looking for those connection points. And to Mustafa's point about how do we help higher education tell their value story and really make clear the narrative of success, it's what did you learn? What did you get here that you couldn't get somewhere else? Or what did you refine here and build upon? And where are you in that journey as you step in and as you step out, so that as you move through higher education in a seamless way, or come from K-12 into these places and move around, I have a good understanding at any point in time where I am and where I need to spend time and work. So I'll let Stephen talk about the comfort level of Minnesota, but I think when we look broadly, some of this might have been decided for us in higher education, and it's being asked by our students, stomping their feet, trying to say, tell me how this is relevant, make these connections clear for me, and how can I apply this in these different spaces? And the record of thinking comprehensively about a record in the way that Mustafa was explaining gets us there. Stephen, I'll pass to you for Minnesota's perspective, or your personal one if you don't want to put Minnesota on the hook.
No, that is a really good question. I would say at the university specifically, we definitely have programs that are at that point, typically from the medical health areas where their competencies and curriculum is very structured, and students have to do things outside of the regular academic curriculum as well, and be able to show those types of skills. But either way, piggybacking off of what Natasha said, it's going to come down to the communication to the students. So we have to show the students that there is benefit in this approach and what you can actually do with this type of, experience record, comprehensive learner record, where it does provide evidence. You can actually show and document, demonstrate that, yes, I am meeting all of these different competencies and skills, and here's how my faculty have evaluated me as a student, as well as my experiences like in a student group leadership position, or volunteer experience, an internship, anything like that.
Oh, great. Helpful, thank you. And Mustafa, maybe you can paint a picture for us. What does a CLR look like? Let's say a student has worked through a program and curricular and co-curricular experiences at a university.
Sure.
What do they end up with? I mean, we know they're going to have the degree that they'll hang on their wall, but what is the CLR? What does that look like?
I mean, in its simplest description, is a CLR would be a collection of digital credentials and assertions of achievements that have been verified by both my peers. When I say both my peers, my institution and faculty, as well as myself. So in the olden days, I mean, and there's still a lot of portfolio solutions out there, and folks do use them. I believe this offers what I call a bit of an automated or streamlined version of a portfolio that is that has data in its core, as opposed to a traditional portfolio, literally, as we are putting like content into it, right? So, and CLR, however, has all the benefits of all the various applications. So from when you talk about badging, and a lot of folks they have badge programs right now, right? And badging is a fantastic way of supplementing learning. However, a badge is a binary object that is flat. And so the CLR inherently has a vectoral space of learning that you can actually build levels of competency, shall we say, in a sequence, and see the development of the learner albeit in a visual way. So for a learner, before I describe what this looks like, I think what it means is that we have this visibility or transparency into the learning journey, which has been largely opaque. So to Natasha's point, this has great implications to mentoring and advising. If my learner is having challenges around critical thinking, there currently on campuses, not everywhere you would find an easy list of, let me look up the educational experiences, both curricular and co-curricular, that would help aid the development of that as a skill. And again, I think the terminology, unfortunately, I find that it gets in the way. When we talk about skills, I think certainly with higher ed, we do refer to them as also outcomes, but those are usually broad. But I think any desirable trait, I think, could be, and certainly skills, competency, or outcomes, doesn't matter what you call them. As long as there is an evidence that we're collecting through the regular workflow of the academic cycle, all those recognition of skills, both curricular and co-curricular and self-issued, dropping into a pool, if you will, or like let's say a data-driven portfolio that I can, using the standards, I can basically take into my skills wallet or basically be able to allow a employment platform or the career platform, like the handshakes and the simplicities of this world, to start mining with permission the skills of let's say learners that are graduating or currently in education with University of Minnesota that Stephen and his colleagues are presiding over. So now we're looking at opportunities for understanding the connections between these skills and better understanding of fit to career. And I think that's the recipe for jobs finding students and our learners and earners, as opposed to our learners and earners seeking jobs, right? And that's where everything is going, I think. And that level of transparency and data is what is needed. And every other industry has been benefiting from a transparency and data evolution. And higher ed is no exception, I think. And certainly education at large has a lot of value that is already being generated. But I think they're not as well captured. So if you think about a course experience resulted in a letter grade B, there's a lot of opacity there. So I think the CLR approach and amazing academic leaders like Stephen is literally unpacking this value that goes out the window, literally. We know our students are capable. We know they think they're capable, and they're learning and they're growing their skills and confidence. But this creates a whole new level of recognizing and capturing that value in the service of our learners. And I get very excited about this, Jared. So if you have any follow-up questions to further explain it, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, no, the concept makes a lot of sense. Coincidentally, I was asked by the university I attended to come give a presentation to undergrads in the College of Humanities, and they asked me to prepare some thoughts on how my undergrad experience helped me in my career. And that was the first time that I really kind of sat back and reflected and said, what were the experiences, what were the outcomes of my undergrad experience that helped me in my career? And so I think what you are trying to do here by reducing that opacity and by helping both students and instructors and certainly staff as well have greater clarity into how students are developing and the skills and the knowledge they're attaining can only be helpful. I mean, it kind of ties into the whole aspect of learning that we sometimes take for granted, and that's the metacognition of reflecting on the learning. So let me put that aside for just a moment. I know a lot of people here in the audience are probably thinking to themselves, well, I like the idea of moving towards a more skills-based curriculum, and I like the idea of exploring whether or not we could begin incorporating CLR into how we track student progress. Stephen, I wonder if you have any thoughts on best practices or maybe helpful tips for people who are just getting interested in this and they want to start exploring it.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. I think that's a really interesting question, since we are essentially still at the beginning level of those stages. Institutionally, yes, we see value in something like this. So we have support, we have buy-in, and it's, making the university aware of something like this and how we can help empower students with their learning journey. And one thing I think to ask Mustafa to touch on in regards to the learning journey is, this is available to students and even after they leave the university. And so they would have access to their comprehensive learner record, even, 5 years, 10 years after they left the university. And so if they do need to, seek, advancement within their employment or looking for a change in jobs, they have that record there of everything that they've done while they were at the university or institution, as well as anything that they could have done post leaving that institution, graduating from that institution, because that's where that reflection piece, trying to remember exactly what you've done, if it's 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But I would just, add the university, we see value in this. And so it's a matter of, how do we implement something like this? And as Mustafa mentioned, ACRO, they were having a comprehensive learner record showcase over the last 2 days. I was there, and a number of other University of Minnesota staff people were at that showcase as well, learning from other institutions in regards to how they have done this and where they're at in the process. And so we've learned from them. And so I would, hold off on that question, Jared, for 6 months, a year down the road. Once we've actually, gone in that direction and we have something, in place that we can actually show.
No, fair enough. One of the things that occurs to me as well, especially as you talk about the fact that students will be able to take the CLR with them. They'll be able to have that record of the things that they learned in their experiences when they graduate and beyond. Stephen, I wonder if that plays into how University of Minnesota is thinking about their role in supporting lifelong learning or post-grad learning by alumni.
Yeah, definitely. The University of Minnesota, we have established 7 common university-wide student learning outcomes, as well as 7 student development outcomes. So one of our learning outcomes is effective citizenship and lifelong learning. So it's kind of a fuzzy student learning outcome that's out there. How do you measure it? And I think this definitely provides us with an opportunity to measure that, where students, after they've graduated from the university, if we remind students that this is available to them even after they leave the university, that's a way for us to capture that data and to show for our university accreditor, the Higher Learning Commission, that yes, our students are taking part in these lifelong learning activities, skills, experiences that we can document.
Great, thank you. And Natasha, I want to come back to that question I asked Stephen just a few minutes ago. You've worked with a number of different universities and institutions with interest in CLR and skills, and I wonder if you have anything that you can share with the audience in terms of best practices or examples from the field, especially for those institutions that are thinking about how do I get started.
Sure, very happy to do so. And please let me know if I sound any better on this time. We're trying a different mic, but we will work through our technology together. Similar is different. All right. So, well, I will say some of the best practices is you can think about, like, if you're going to have a big event like a dinner party, you want to get your house in order before you invite a lot of people over to take a look at what you've done and sit at the table. And so the same thing is sort of with a comprehensive learner record. Before we can get to the place where you have this really great output, we really need to think about our internal educational design, how we're connecting the dots and aligning different pieces of what we're asking a student to do here, and how that connects to different pieces and builds towards shared learning outcomes that Stephen had mentioned. Like, as a collective university, We have places that we're trying to get our students to go. We have learning that we're trying to move them towards throughout that learning journey that they have with us and all the other things that are happening in their life. How do these different pieces connect and fit together? So if we have learning outcomes, but they never really meant anything to us, or we didn't really use them meaningfully in our program, probably a little bit of a longer journey to get to your comprehensive learner record, but a worthwhile one to come back and say, what are we really wanting to design for? And who are our students? And how do they learn? And how can we best think about giving them those learning opportunities to engage? So I would say, while it is really helpful to have a robust assessment process and really good educational design as a part of it, to move faster and further towards CLR, these are all things that we're trying to do as educators, increasingly more now, to see how are we being responsive to our students as they're learning in different remote capacities and different spaces and places, to ensure that our learning is getting to them in the ways that we want. So best practices, I think, are have some shared learning goals. What are we trying to drive towards across the entirety of our institution? Think about intentionally, where do we want to connect that? And what are those educational experiences that were clearly targeted to get our students to those goals? And where are we thinking about providing space for places that we didn't expect learning to happen, but our students said they got it and they have some evidence of it. And they want to say, look, I totally did effective communication over here. Can that show up on my record? And we can think about how we verify it, which helps us figure out where we're really good and effective in education.
Excellent, thank you. So we are 8 minutes past the top of the hour. I want to open up the conversation to include the audience. So audience, as you've been learning about CLR and the work that's been done at University of Minnesota with AEFIS, what questions do you have, or what comments can we play off of? Please post your questions. Any dialogue that we can have with you, we would love to engage.
Well, I will share a story. I'm going to see if this helps with my audio while people are putting some questions in. To Mustafa's great point that you raised earlier on, and Jared, your reflections on thinking about what did I get from my undergraduate education. So back in the day when we flew places regularly, you'd be on planes, flying around, I would always have a conversation with the people talking. Well, that doesn't seem to help, but we'll try. The people sitting next to me to say, hey, you know, what are you doing? What are you traveling? And when I was at the National Institute for Learning Outcomes Assessment, I would say, well, I run this place that we study. How do you know if you learned anything in college? Without fail, the person sitting next to me would be like, I learned nothing. Oh my gosh, right? As an educator, I was like, oh, my God, heartbreaking. But they would then go on to talk about all of these knowledge and skills that they knew that they could do, that they used information resources, were great critical thinkers, were effective communicators, worked well in teams, all this stuff that they thought they got in spite of their institution. Oh my goodness. If we think about our communication challenge as our institutions in higher ed, if we have tons of students that leave that don't know all this great thought we put into every time that we had an interaction with them, that's not helpful to anyone, ourselves included. And I think that the power of a comprehensive learner record to just also showcase all the hard work we do as educators to have this stuff make sense, that we think intentionally and deeply about why we ask students to do certain things. We're not like, go to an event, it's good for you like broccoli. You know, we have reasoning behind this that connects to learning outcomes. And I think the potential there is so beneficial and so huge.
That's great. And we do have a question coming in from the audience. This comes from Aaron. How can I implement the CLR standards if I am not currently using Canvas as my LMS? Do I have to use Canvas for the integration? I mean, I would say, of course you should do that, but that's not the real answer. So Mustafa, perhaps you could address that and talk a little bit about how the standard is going to work across.
Sure. So first of all, comprehensive learner record, I think, as also Stephen described, it's both a there is a technology, there is a button to push ultimately, but there is also the way to, there's an approach also that needs to be considered. And in the case of Canvas AEFIS, as an example, and in the case of University of Minnesota, The one wonderful part is AEFIS became a assessment management partner for at the University of Minnesota, and at the time they already were partners with Canvas for nearly 4 years, I think, at the time. And what that allowed us to do is basically, as we looked at, as one of my mentors calls it, looked at how to get regular assessment processes in place and in cadence, which is something we're really good at. As we're doing that work, the CLR became the, wow, okay, we're going to do this regular stuff, so we're going to keep the train going and the lights on. But as we do that, AEFIS and our commitment to CLR will yield this magical result or additional wonderful stations that we would want to get to, and that's where that's how our partnership really flourished with Stephen and his team and colleagues at University of Minnesota. From a technical standpoint, however, their commitment to Canvas and AEFIS effectively allows them to really solve the biggest challenge of them all. How does this all come together at the level of the faculty or where the instruction is happening? So for those courses, let's say, that have been successful in Canvas, AEFIS and Canvas integration and our partnership allows those experiences to be easily tagged, and without doing any new work, for faculty not needing to learn new tools or new tricks or new methods, they could contribute their existing work and existing assessments, existing evaluation of skills and competencies that just get magically pulled in thanks to Jared, Mark, and our team's wondrous technology work. So I think that's a very interesting situation where it's an evolutionary pathway to something so revolutionary. And I think that's and the other part of it is at the point of this connection being made, then the sky is the limit, because that data now becomes available to the learners, to the educators, to the institutions, and there's a lot more can be done from there, and those are the projects we're working on. And very innovative projects are actually proliferating from that, simple take care of the current pains, but getting so much gains in the process.
Mm-hmm. And we did share in the chat for the audience to learn more about the IMS global standard for CLR. Aaron, as you think about that question, remember that the standards are in place for technology providers to make it easier for their users, their constituents, to gain the benefits of these ideas. So even though AEFIS is the one that's absolutely driving the charge in this space, talk with the technology providers that you use and see which of them are planning to support the standard, or even just integrate with systems like AEFIS.
And Jared, thank you for saying that. Ultimately, standards allow us to, and I'm going to say this for you too, Jared, for us to be expendable, ideal case, because who are we to hold your data hostage or you hostage in a process? So I think that's a very good point, Jared. Thank you for clarifying that.
Right. And we are just about at the end of our time together. I want to thank you, Natasha and Mustafa from AEFIS, and Stephen, thank you very much for joining the University of Minnesota. And thanks to the audience. Thanks for everybody who joined this live stream event and for your contributions and questions. I hope you all have a great rest of your day and a really fantastic new year at the beginning of this new decade. We'll talk to you soon.
Jared, thank you. Stephen, thank you. Natasha, thank you. And Mark, get some sleep. Thank you.